Tonight, we will travel back in time to colonial America, a world very different from our own. Imagine a quiet morning hundreds of years ago, where there were no cars, no electric lights, and no modern machines. The day began with the gentle sounds of nature, birds singing, the wind moving through the trees, and the soft glow of sunrise across the fields. A small wooden farmhouse sits peacefully near a forest. Inside, a family slowly wakes up. The warmth of the fireplace still remains from the night before. Their beds are simple, covered with handmade blankets, and every item inside the home was created through patience and hard work. As the morning begins, the family prepares for another day. Water must be collected, food must be prepared, and the animals outside must be cared for. Life was slower, but every small task had meaning. This was the everyday rhythm of colonial America. As the sun rises higher over the quiet fields of colonial America, the farmhouse slowly comes alive. The father walks outside toward the land that provides food for the family. There are no large machines or modern tools. Every part of the farm depends on human effort, patience, and careful planning. The fields require constant attention. Crops must be checked, animals must be cared for, and fences must be repaired when needed. A farmer's work follows the seasons. Planting, growing, harvesting, and preparing for winter are all important parts of life. Nearby, children begin their own small tasks. They learn from their parents by watching and helping. Life teaches them responsibility from an early age. In this quiet world, every person has a role, and every simple action helps the family survive. Inside the farmhouse, the morning continues with quiet activity. The mother prepares the day's food using simple ingredients gathered from the land. There are no modern kitchens, no electric appliances, and no quick meals. Cooking requires time, skill, and attention. A fire burns inside the hearth as a pot hangs above the flames. Bread, vegetables, grains, and preserved foods are carefully prepared. Many families grew their own crops and stored extra supplies because every season brought different challenges. The children watch and learn these important skills. They discover how to make clothing, prepare food, and care for the home. These lessons were not written in books alone. They were passed from one generation to another through daily life. The farmhouse may seem simple, but it is filled with hard work, family connection, and quiet moments of togetherness. As the day moves forward in colonial America, the sounds of daily life fill the small settlement. Outside the farmhouse, people travel along simple dirt paths connecting homes, farms, and nearby villages. There are no paved roads or fast transportation. Most journeys are made by walking, riding horses, or using wooden wagons. Traveling takes time, so people plan carefully before leaving home. In the village, craftsmen work with their hands. A blacksmith shapes metal beside a hot fire. A carpenter creates useful wooden items, and farmers exchange goods they have grown or produced. Life in these communities depends on cooperation. Neighbors often help each other build homes, repair tools, and prepare for difficult seasons. Although life is challenging, people share strong connections because everyone depends on one another. The village slowly becomes a place where stories, skills, and traditions are passed from one person to another. In colonial America, the changing seasons controlled almost every part of life. People watched the sky, the temperature, and the movement of nature because their survival depended on understanding the world around them. During spring, families prepared the land and planted crops that would provide food for the months ahead. Summer brought long days of work under the warm sun. Farmers cared for their fields, while families collected and stored supplies. When autumn arrived, it was time for harvesting. The work was difficult, but it was also a moment of satisfaction. The food collected during the season would help families survive the cold months of winter. Winter brought a slower rhythm. The fireplace became the center of the home, where families repaired tools, shared stories, and spent quiet evenings together. Life was deeply connected to nature, and every season carried its own challenges and peaceful moments. As evening arrives in colonial America, the busy sounds of the day slowly begin to disappear. The fields become quiet, the animals return to their shelters, and families gather inside their homes. The fireplace becomes the heart of the house. Its warm light fills the room as people finish their final tasks. Some repair clothing, others fix tools, and children listen carefully to the stories shared by older family members. Without television, phones, or modern entertainment, families created their own moments of connection. They talked about the day's events, shared memories, and passed down stories from the past. The night outside is dark and peaceful. The stars shine brightly because there are no city lights covering the sky. For many families, these quiet evenings were a simple but meaningful part of life in colonial America, where time moved slowly and every moment felt connected to family and nature. As the night becomes deeper in colonial America, the household slowly prepares for sleep. There are no electric lamps shining through the windows, only the soft glow of candles and the fading warmth of the fireplace. Before resting, families make sure everything is ready for the next day. Tools are placed safely, animals are checked one last time, and the fire is carefully maintained through the night. Sleeping in colonial America was different from today. Beds were often handmade from wood, filled with straw, feathers, or other natural materials. Blankets were created by hand and valued because they required many hours of work. The house becomes silent. Outside, the forest is filled with the sounds of nighttime creatures and the gentle movement of the wind. For these families, sleep was not just a break from work. It was a peaceful moment of rest after a long day connected to nature, family, and simple living. The next morning arrives quietly in colonial America, bringing a new beginning. For families living in small settlements, each day was a continuation of the traditions they had followed for generations. Children learned by watching the adults around them. A young child might learn how to plant seeds, care for animals, or help prepare food. Knowledge was not only found in schools or books, it was built into everyday life. Parents taught important skills because every ability had value. Knowing how to grow crops, preserve food, sew clothing, or repair tools could make the difference between comfort and hardship. The home was more than a place to sleep. It was a place where families learned, worked, and supported each other. In this quiet corner of history, ordinary moments became the foundation of life in colonial America.
Beyond the farmhouse, colonial America was filled with small communities where people depended on each other. A village was not just a group of houses, it was a place where families shared skills, traditions, and responsibilities. The local blacksmith was an important person in the community. With fire, iron, and careful hands, he created tools, horseshoes, and items needed for daily life. The carpenter built furniture, repaired homes, and shaped wood into useful objects. Farmers brought crops, eggs, meat, and other goods to trade with neighbors. Many people did not rely on money as much as modern society does. Instead, exchanging skills and resources was a natural part of life. These communities were connected by trust. When someone needed help, neighbors often came together. In a world without modern technology, human connection was one of the most valuable resources people had. On certain days, families traveled to the village market, a place filled with quiet conversation and steady activity. Long before supermarkets existed, people brought what they had grown, baked, crafted, or preserved. Wooden tables displayed fresh vegetables, homemade bread, woven baskets, candles, pottery, and carefully stitched clothing. Farmers greeted familiar faces, exchanging goods and news from nearby settlements. Children walked beside their parents, observing the busy but peaceful marketplace. They learned how trade worked simply by watching adults negotiate with respect and patience. The market was more than a place to buy and sell. It was where friendships were strengthened, stories were shared, and communities stayed connected. For many, education in colonial America was very different from what we know today. Many children spent most of their time helping their families, learning practical skills through daily work. Reading and writing were important, but not every child had the chance to attend school. Small, one-room schoolhouses served nearby communities. A single teacher often taught children of different ages together. Lessons were simple, focusing on reading, writing, arithmetic, and moral values. Books were rare and carefully protected because they were expensive to replace. Every page was treated with respect. For many families, the greatest classroom was the home itself, where parents and grandparents shared knowledge, traditions, and life lessons that had been passed down through generations. Faith played a quiet but important role in daily life throughout colonial America. On Sunday mornings, families dressed in their best handmade clothing and walked together to the local meeting house. The journey was often long, but it was also a time to visit neighbors and strengthen community bonds. The meeting house was more than a place of worship. It served as a gathering place where important news was shared, local decisions were discussed, and families supported one another during difficult times. After the service, people stood outside, talking peacefully before returning home. Children played nearby, while adults exchanged stories and advice. These simple gatherings helped create strong communities, reminding everyone that they were part of something larger than their own household. When the weather turned cold, life in colonial America became even more demanding. Families spent many weeks preparing for winter, long before the first snowfall arrived. Firewood was cut and stacked carefully, vegetables were stored in cool cellars, and meat was preserved by smoking or salting. Inside the farmhouse, the fireplace burned almost constantly,
providing warmth for cooking, working, and resting. Thick wool blankets and handmade clothing helped protect everyone from the freezing air outside. Winter evenings were often quiet. Families gathered around the fire to mend clothing, carve wooden tools, read from a treasured book, or simply share stories passed down through generations. Even during the coldest months, these peaceful moments brought comfort, reminding everyone that warmth came not only from the fire, but also from being together. As winter slowly gave way to spring, the frozen ground began to soften beneath the warm sunlight. Birds returned to the forests, streams flowed freely once again, and the fields showed the first signs of new life. For farming families, this season marked a fresh beginning. Seeds saved from the previous harvest were carefully planted by hand, each one carrying the hope of a successful year ahead. Every member of the household helped, from the youngest child scattering seeds to the older family members preparing the soil. The days became longer, and the sounds of nature slowly replaced the silence of winter. Gentle breezes carried the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers across the countryside. With every sunrise, colonial America awakened once more, ready for another season of quiet work, patience, and hope. As spring settled across the countryside, gardens became an important part of everyday life. Nearly every colonial family grew herbs, vegetables, and flowers close to their home. Cabbages, beans, onions, carrots, and pumpkins filled the small garden beds, providing fresh food throughout the warmer months. Children carried wooden watering buckets while parents carefully removed weeds and watched each plant grow. Every harvest, no matter how small, was appreciated because nothing was taken for granted. The garden was also a place of quiet reflection. Bees moved gently from flower to flower.
By early summer, the forests surrounding the settlements were full of life. Towering oak and pine trees offered cool shade, while clear streams flowed gently between smooth stones. Many families entered these woods to gather berries, mushrooms, herbs, and firewood. The forest was both generous and respected. People understood its value and took only what they needed, leaving enough for the seasons ahead. Birds filled the air with song, squirrels moved through the branches, and deer quietly wandered among the trees. Walking beneath the tall canopy brought a sense of peace. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating gentle patterns on the forest floor. For many colonists, these quiet moments in nature offered a welcome pause from the steady rhythm of daily work.
As the afternoon sun gently crossed the sky, the nearby river became an important part of daily life. Fresh water flowed steadily, providing drinking water, fish, and a simple way to travel between settlements. Small wooden boats drifted quietly along the calm current, carrying supplies and local farmers. Children skipped smooth stones across the water, while adults washed clothes along the riverbank. The gentle sound of flowing water mixed with bird song and the soft rustling of leaves, creating a peaceful melody that filled the warm air. Many families paused for a few quiet.
As the golden light of late afternoons spread across the fields, families returned from their daily work. Baskets filled with fresh vegetables,
herbs, and eggs were carefully carried back to the farmhouse. Every harvest, no matter how small, was treated with gratitude because each meal depended on the efforts of the day. The air was filled with the gentle scent of fresh hay and wildflowers. Horses rested after pulling heavy wagons, while chickens wandered freely across the yard, searching for grain. The pace of life remained calm and steady. There was no hurry, only the quiet satisfaction of honest work completed before sunset. As long shadows stretched across the countryside, another peaceful day in colonial America slowly came to an end. As the sun slowly disappeared below the horizon, warm golden light faded into soft shades of blue. One by one, candles were lit inside the farmhouse, casting gentle shadows across the wooden walls. Supper was a simple meal shared around the family table, often made from fresh vegetables, homemade bread, and food carefully preserved for the seasons ahead. Conversation was quiet and unhurried. Family members spoke about the day's work, tomorrow's plans, and the changing weather. Outside, crickets began their evening song, while a cool breeze drifted through the trees. When the meal was finished, everyone helped clean the table before settling into the peaceful rhythm of another calm evening, grateful for a day well spent. As darkness gently settled over the countryside, the sounds of the village slowly faded away. One by one, candles were extinguished, leaving only the soft glow of the fireplace. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly above the quiet fields, filled with countless bright stars, untouched by city lights. A cool breeze moved through the trees, carrying the gentle scent of pine and fresh earth. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called softly, while crickets continued their peaceful evening song. Inside the farmhouse, the family rested after another day of honest work. Tomorrow would bring many of the same simple tasks, yet each day carried its own quiet beauty. In colonial America, life followed the steady rhythm of nature, where every sunrise promised purpose and every peaceful night offered well-earned rest.